Do you want to be included in education? Do you want to be included in the American dream, quote unquote, of home ownership? Well, the way that we're going to include you, and I'll talk about that you in a minute, is through predatory lending practices, right? So subprime loans where the interest rate balloons, and payday loans, which you just narrated, right, do the same thing. And so much of this, and I'm so sorry, I'll shut up after this, but much of this is about the history of racial capitalism in the United States. So this is absolutely a class issue. I completely agree with you, but we cannot, and in my opinion, must not disentangle race and class in the United States, right? So if we look historically, like at what the GI Bill in terms of bringing people into homeownership, for whom did it do that? It did that for white, hetero families, right? Did it do that for domestic workers? Did it do that for who are at that point mostly Black and Latino? No. Did it do that for African-American workers in any sector of the society? No. So predatory inclusion is often things that were held out to mostly white families, certainly not poor white families, but mostly white families as part of the social safety net. When in the wake of the civil rights movement, you have all of these communities clamoring to get in, clamoring for inclusion, right? The capitalist class, which is also the political class, says, okay, but here are the terms. The terms are public college, which was called that because it was free, is no longer free. Now you have to debt finance it, even public college, right? And we'll prey on you with these predatory for-profit college advertisements that actually target Black and brown communities, veterans communities, right? Or, okay, you want access to a home loan where African-American families and Latinx families have been redlined from mortgage lending? Okay, but here's a subprime loan for you, right? So predatory inclusion specifically in the sort of racialized fabric of class in this country, beyond this country too, but certainly in this country.
This is Revolution Podcast. To hear the rest of that, all right, this is Revolution Podcast, and that was a clip from an earlier episode from, I believe it came out this past Sunday, with Hannah Appel of the Debt Collective, who they have a new book out right now on Haymarket Books called Can't Pay, Won't Pay. Pick that book up. It might, I don't know if it's still free, but there was a free PDF they were giving away on Haymarket Books. Can't Pay, Won't Pay from the Debt Collective. And that was a clip that I cut from our discussion. If you are new to the show and you're watching this on Twitter or Twitch, this is Revolution Podcast is where you can find that entire episode. So please go there and check it out. It was a great talk Hannah and I had about debt, different kinds of debt. What the Debt Collective does is literally they form these kind of literal debt collectives to fight against the predatory, not just predatory lending. I mean, I feel there's a predatory nature to debt. My personal beliefs is there's certain things that shouldn't be, commodified. I know a lot of people probably disagree with that perspective. Housing is one of them. Higher education is another. And she said a little bit about public education in that clip. We had a deeper dive into why quote unquote public education is so expensive on the show. Today on the show, I was supposed to have a couple friends with me, but today I'm just going to have a really good friend of mine, probably one of my best friends. Jesus, has it been 30 years? Almost 30 years we've been friends. William Lew, who is the basketball coach one of the basketball coaches at Oakland High. It was on the show also some time ago. We had a whole entire episode about the gentrification of high school athletics. And today I definitely wanted to kind of have a deeper dive about COVID, sports, and the new normal. Also, I definitely want to shout out, I got a phone call from another good friend and show regular, kind of sort of show regular, Chris Riggins, who asked me, and this is kind of dope. You know what, Chris, if you're watching this, you're hella awesome, and this is dope. Like, I can't lie. He goes, hey man, what are you doing on the 29th and the 30th? I was like, this month? He goes, yeah, this month. I'm like, I don't know. I don't have anything on my calendar right now. He goes, well, can you do this show with me and Jerobi from Tribe Called Quest? It's called The New Normal. Jerobi's New Normal. It's like, okay. And then we talked a little bit more and went in a little more detail. So in a couple days, I'll be doing the show with Chris Rickens and Jerobi from Tribe Called Quest. That's pretty dope. I think it's dope. I'm a Quest fan. I'm not wearing a Tribe Called Quest shirt. I'm wearing a Deftones shirt, but I am a Tribe Called Quest fan. That being said, I also want to talk real quick about some new Patreon features. I've been talking about it for some time. There's two things that are going on. One of which is there's going to be a weekly, I don't want to say wrap-up show, but there's going to be a weekly show for patrons only. I will have guests on from time to time, but it also will be just me going over things that aren't really getting a lot of the coverage on the mainstream media. And one of them is ProPublica's piece on the CDC and the way we view public health. Hi, guys. There's children that live next door. If you've watched this before, you know Phoenix, my son, his cousins literally live next door, and they have walked upstairs. Hi, guys. Bye. I keep the window open, and they talk to me as they walk by. It's kind of cute. But I definitely wanted to get into a conversation about that really wonderful ProPublica piece on the CDC and kind of a deeper dive into zoonotic diseases. Speak of the devil. You want to say hi? You sure? You got to come here. Nope. Okay. He doesn't want to say hi. That's Phoenix. He's going to go party with his cousins. They turn it out. So that's going to be going on for patrons. It's going to be a weekly show, patrons only. And also, I've gotten the first little snippet of an animated series that we're working on with a group of leftist artists that are doing a lot of great work in Southern California with a lot of the more progressive campaigns down there, called Left Click. And we had got together, maybe a little over a month ago, discussing this revolutionary histories idea we have, making these little short animated histories about things that a lot of people may not have a lot of knowledge about, but you hear about in the public discourse. So one thing that I'm seeing demonized a lot right now is China. And there's a lot of definitely Red Scare rhetoric with China. So we are working on a series of 2-minute videos that are going to be animated. And also they're going to be somewhat humorous. One of the people that's one of the writers and creators was a writer on Robot Chicken. So that's pretty cool. Revolutionary histories, we're calling those. So become a patron. Where's the link? There's a link here somewhere to be a patron. Become a patron. Help out the program grow. There's a lot of content that we're doing. That snippet that you heard takes a lot of time to do. I finally figured out how to do that shit, and it is not fun. That being said, today, when Will comes on, we're going to talk about a few things that get people kind of heated. On our show, we went over it a little bit, but definitely there's some polarizing athletes, in my opinion. And I'm 43. I grew up in the tail end of the 70s and definitely through the 80s. And athletes in my era, I kind of started watching sports and matured watching sports with Jordan. And Jordan is not a real political figure and never was. He sold tennis shoes. That's what he did. He's a tennis shoe guy. Those shoes still sell to this day. Almost 40 years later, people are still rocking. There was a Jordan 1s. I don't know what they called them at the time. I think they just called them Air Jordans. And he's kind of known for that line, Republicans buy shoes too. So Michael Jordan, in my opinion, kind of set the tone for the corporate athlete. And then as his career wanes down in the later 90s, and we get this new crop of athlete, the Fab Five freshman from Michigan. Maybe if you want to say Jordan added an urban aesthetic, putting it as nicely as possible, I guess. I think those guys definitely took it into overdrive. And after them, you get Iverson and Kenyon Martin and all these other athletes. But still, we're not that socially conscious. And I know I'm harping on basketball, but I feel like they kind of get the spotlight. You know what? I'm going to have Will come in here. He's finally here. So let me ask Will what he has to say about this.
What's good?
Will.
What's up?
Hey, thanks for taking some time to talk to me today.
Everything's good connection-wise, sound-wise.
I can see you. You're very loud. There's no echo. Your head looks freshly shaven, so you are prepared to be on air.
All right.
I was rambling on a bit about. I'm sure you heard a little bit of it about Jordan being like the first. I would say the first corporate athlete. Would you agree with that?
I mean, I wasn't around in the earlier era, so like I don't know, like how corporate Joe DiMaggio or Joe Namath or whoever,
Those guys always pushed brands, but they weren't the brand.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying.
And I would say Jordan was the first guy that's like, no, I am the brand. The brand is me.
Oh, literally, it's Jordan brand.
Yeah. And I can't think of anybody like that. And then what I was saying was, when you get the Fab Five in the early 90s, they were the more I hate to say words like urban aesthetic. I don't want to say hood. Well, I don't really think they were hood.
That's the best word. If you know anything about Michael Jordan, there's really nothing urban about him except he's black. That's the term, right? Is urban is black, because Jordan is a conservative country boy, from the heartland of conservatives, conservative country boys. So yeah. And
after the Fab Five, it really, in my opinion, ramps up with Allen Iversons, the Michael Vicks, Kenyon. I threw Kenyon Martin's name in there because I think he had a cover. Remember, he was the cover of Sports Illustrated once.
Yeah, I mean, like Stephon Marbury being able to put out
Stephon Marbury,
$15 shoes or whatever they were,
And he has a great documentary, by the way. If you guys haven't watched Stephon Marbury's,
that's one on Netflix. The kid from Coney Island.
I think so. Is that the one that ends where you're just crying, or is that Allen Iverson's that ends where you're crying?
I mean, Iverson, there's a lot of crying involved with Iverson related stuff. He's just so emotional.
Iverson went to China, right?
No, Marbury has a statue in China.
Okay, so it was Marbury. That he's the one that ends in the barber shop where he tells the kid, you could be president one day. Yeah. And you can see the kid kind of tearing up. Yeah. I'm in the room tearing up.
The kid had the same middle name or something like that. And it was just like a super coincidence.
Yeah. That was an amazing documentary, in my opinion. But I feel like with those guys, you had this kind of shift. Nobody could really capture that. We used to talk about this back in the day. Nobody could really capture the market like Jordan could. And again, athletes aren't really that political. We're not really talking about anything. I mean, there's still stuff going on in the world that's affecting their population, right?
Yeah.
It's not like during this time everything's great because Bill Clinton is president. Mass incarceration has stepped up. Private prisons has ramped up. And still, as long as these guys are shooting the ball and scoring touchdowns and they got their own shoe, that just, social issues go by the wayside. And then I feel like we don't really talk about them again on a major, major level until Colin Kaepernick takes a knee. Or would you disagree?
Yeah. I always say that, like, you weaponize comfort.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they've gotten to the point, when I say they, I mean, like, the powers that be or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's gotten to the point where, like, they've mastered it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like to the point where when an athlete speaks up, then it's like, oh, we don't want to hear from you. But if they don't speak up, it's like, well, why didn't you say anything? And the whole cycle of, like, frustration, overloaded information, like, just everything combined, just, and then you have, like, the whole thing with, like, speaking about basketball specifically, but even with football, it's the risks that the top end guys that are worth, a quarter or $500 million can take is different than a guy that's, check to check on a minimum salary that's not guaranteed, that, could end up, hurt and unemployed, or, just the ball doesn't bounce his way and he doesn't have a contract. And, it's nice to start your life with, $100,000 saved, but it's also, you've been chasing this big check for 6-7 years and all you have is $100,000 to show for it, and you don't have any work experience. So it's I can see how, you would declaw the voice of a lot of athletes.
Keenan Foster, my cousin Keenan, says Jordan invested in a lot of private prisons.
That's a different Jordan, isn't it?
Which Jordan is that?
No, there's another dude named Michael
Jordan Knight from
No, there's like another dude named Michael Jordan that was like a big time, like, investor in private prisons, and, like, somewhere along the line a meme got put out and they associated that with the basketball player Michael Jeffrey Jordan, but I don't think he does.
Sorry, I just got a text message from DSA, and DSA is doing a big drive. We're trying to get 100,000 people in DSA. If you are of the left and want to push the potential Biden administration left, sign up and be a member of the DSA. I believe my mom is a member of the DSA. Will, are you a card-carrying DSA member?
I don't even know what that is.
Oh my God. And this is what the show is here for, ladies and gentlemen. It's the Democratic Socialists of America.
Oh, okay.
Are you like, I can't do that? Xi Jinping won't get mad at you, I promise.
I would say this. The more I talk to people that are, like, that think socialists are the boogeyman, the more I'm able to just use these little, very simplistic anecdotes to show them that you actually love socialism. But it's just funny. But as far as, like, organizations and stuff, it's same thing we're talking about with the athletes. It's like, between work, coaching, and, life, there's so much of your hours taken up each day that it's really easy to find an excuse to not have time to, vet and research and all that type of stuff.
Well, for those of you that don't want to try to weasel out of it, like my best friend here, Willu, sign up to be a member of the DSA. I will put a link up as we continue to talk on this show. I do have a list. I always have a list of things to go over. And one of the things I wanted to go over. There's
no screen share on this, right?
Yeah.
Oh, there is?
Yeah.
How do I do that? Because I just want to show the picture of the Michael Jordan that invests in private.
Do you have a link on the bottom of your thing? It should look like a screen with a line through it.
Yes.
Click that, and that's the screen share. And while you're doing that, I'm gonna look for the DSA. Let's see here. Join.
Is it sharing?
Let me look. No. You want to send it to me in the private chat?
It says stop shares.
I can't see anything. Oh, there it is. Let me open it up. I'm sorry. You did do it right. It's my bad. I am a horrible host. Nope. You got to click the thing. Let's close this.
What thing am I clicking?
So when you go to screen share, you'll see on the top, it'll say like tabs, like Chrome tabs. So if you're on Chrome, go to Chrome tabs.
Okay, there we go.
Ah, okay. That's funny.
Yeah, so the white guy on the right is the private prisons guy.
Okay, that makes me feel a little bit better.
You know, which is not to say that if given the opportunity, 15, 20 years ago,
I think people always forget too, when you're that rich, you give your money to a guy that his job is for you to like make money on your money, and they invest it wherever they think there's going to be a big return.
Yeah.
And if they thought private prisons was going to be a big return for you, or the bulk of the what do you call it? I can't think right now. Not Trump. What do you call it? The hedge fund was investing in private prisons, then that's where your money went, and you don't know. You don't give a shit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so working in finance, there is a push for these socially conscious funds that are made up of socially, I forget what they call it, like socially responsible
companies,
whatever.
It is called so. Anand Girdadas talks a lot about it in his book Winners Take All, and it does not talk about it in a very positive light. If you have not read Winners Take All, Will, I advise you read it.
I mean, it's capitalism, and it's capitalism light. It's still like we were talking about on Facebook.
It's a nicer capitalism.
Yeah, I mean, you could be a nice boss, but in the system is like, if you're just on an island trying to do the right thing within the confines of the system, you're still in the system.
Exactly. And that's what's hard for a lot of people to understand, because I think at the end of the day, when we talk about things like reforms, it's always trying to make a better capitalism, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're going to reform this thing. We're not going to get rid of it. We're not going to blow up the model that's causing all these problems. We're just going to reform it.
I mean, like, just going back to the whole comfort thing, it's scary. Like, do I really want to join this fight when I finally made, assistant manager, and I'm making more than my bills finally? Is this the time to jump in and, risk our very existence, for something that may or may not, come to fruition? And I think that's what, the powers that be bank on.
Yes. And I also want to ask you this. The NBA championship just ended. The WNBA championship just ended in a bubble. Did they both play in a bubble, the WNBA? I'm not sure.
Yeah, the WNBA bubble wasn't as nice as the NBA bubble, but yeah.
Of course not. Talk about second-class citizens. Yeah. And there's a few things that I wanted to hit on real quick. And there's a meme going around my social media. I don't know if it's been on your social media, but it's the woman, and I can't think of her name. I wish Lindsay was here, because it's probably one of Lindsay's clients. One of our good friends is an agent for the WNBA. What's her name, Will? The woman that came in the same year as LeBron, and she's got 4 titles too.
Sue Bird?
Is that her name?
The white point guard for Seattle?
Sure.
Yeah.
It's like 4. They both have 4 titles. Yeah, they both came in this year, and she got a $30,000 bonus for winning the title, and he got $300,000, and he makes a gajillion billion dollars a year, and she makes like $100,000, and this isn't equality. Yeah. I think that's a little more of a complex discussion.
It's super complex, and it's like, dude, like, the WNBA exists not to push women's basketball. It exists number one, to get rid of the ABL,
Mm-hmm.
which was a pro league that came out 2 or 3 years before the WNBA.
Mm-hmm.
And then as, kind of their, it's like their charity arm damn near. It's like, it's their token, make people happy, but like they don't run it like they're trying to push the women's game, because women are getting paid. Like Diana Taurasi that 1 year was getting paid like I think over $1 million to play in China, and part of her contract they gave her extra money to not play in the WNBA.
To not play?
Yeah, because the WNBA doesn't play during basketball season; they play in the off season.
So Keenan says the WNBA doesn't generate the same revenue as the NBA, and I would have to agree with that. I mean, they don't even fill a stadium.
That's just a part of it. So this is what I've always said. If you play the WNBA games during basketball season instead of in the off season, and then you also play them in smaller arenas in college towns, so you don't have this crazy overhead, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can generate probably more money because you're netting more money, and you could pay these women more money. But that's not in the interest of the NBA to do that.
Mm-hmm. Why it's not in the interest? Why? Because they just don't.
Because it's the NBA. it's the WNBA. It's not. It's the equivalent of, like you have rappers, then you have Asian rappers. You have the real rappers, and then you have the other thing with a hyphen in it. Like, you ever heard of a rap group called Year of the Ox?
No.
So there these two Koreans from Virginia, right?
Okay.
But they're not like Koreans from Virginia. They're like Americans of Korean descent from Virginia.
Gotcha.
And these dudes could rap. Like, they could rap, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's like when you put them in like the whole like Asian rap scene,
Mm-hmm.
like you can see kind of how irritated they are, because like they can rap for real rappers, but when you put them on stage with these like, I hate to say it, but like, these offbeat chinky rappers that are like, oh, he's cool because it's an Asian guy rap. It's like remember that one compilation that me and Luke did a song on, that it was like some Asians and hip hop thing?
God, how many years ago was that?
A long time. But like my whole.
By the way, Will is a rapper, and Will and I were in the same rap group in the 90s.
So like my whole verse was, I started my verse saying there is no such thing as a dope Asian rapper, and like my whole verse was just clowning, like, if someone thinks you're good for an Asian, you suck. And the whole fact that this compilation is to promote Asians in hip hop, it just means that you weren't being pushed in regular like hip hop. You know what I'm saying? Like I mean, the whole term, like even Oriental. Like, I was just reading a thing about it. It's like the word Oriental is racist because it means from the East. The East of what?
Mm-hmm.
The East of regular people. So everything, the Eurocentric, white-centric, whatever you want to call it, is the same thing. It's like the NBA is the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like when you have the junior NBA, everyone knows it's a bunch of little kids. It's a kid camp. No one's going to be like, oh, it's not the thing. It's not expected to be the thing. But, you see women's basketball in Europe is paying, $500,000, to $1 million for like, some of the top women's players. Like the WNBA literally. So with the MNBA, the men's NBA, like what, a third of the league is European or South American players.
Mm-hmm.
And that talent base isn't being tapped into in the WNBA because a lot of the better players, it's like, why would I come to America to make $30,000 when I can make $200,000 at home?
Mm-hmm.
So imagine the NBA this past year, just the playoffs alone, and you don't have a, Nikola Jokic, best player on the Mavericks. You don't have a Jamal Murray, who's not American. He's Canadian. He's overseas. since everything away from America is over a sea, you know. But I think every team had, you know, significant non-American players, and you take away, you know, a lot of them, and you know your whole talent base is like, imagine how far down the NBA talent base would be if you take away all non-American players, and so you just at a talent deficit, you know. Then how it's run is just like if I love watching women's basketball. I hate watching women's basketball when they try to sell it like it's just as good as men's basketball. Like, if I wanted to watch men's basketball, I would just watch men's basketball. Mm-hmm. It's a different game. Let it be a different game.
So, in your opinion, and I know you're not a marketing guy, but in your opinion, how should the WNBA be marketed? I get what you're saying, and I agree. We've had this discussion for some time now that the WNBA is a different game, and I'm in agreement with you.
How would it be marketed? How would I market it as a subsidy of the NBA?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think it's a conflict of interest. Like, you don't want people to watch a WNBA game and not watch an NBA game. The NBA game is your bread and butter. It's a proven commodity.
But I feel like I always tell, like with this show and all the other shows like it, like I have people that come on my show that actually have other podcasts that are way bigger than mine. And I feel like with podcasts, like with music, I don't have just one band in my Spotify collection, right? I can watch the NBA. I should be able to watch another league, especially if it doesn't happen at the same time.
Well, that's why, except for this year, they put the WNBA in the offseason. It's played during baseball and football. And then their championship ends around the time the NBA starts, and their seasons start when the NBA ends.
I mean, in theory, that's like your year-round basketball. In theory, except for the fact that the NBA actually does year-round basketball, because they're selling, you know, your summer league package, the draft. They're even showing the draft combines where there's people running, people jumping to touch a stick. Which, you know, I don't like that, because I get where they're coming from. They're seeing what football has done for some time now. Like the combine in football, I don't know if you remember, it was like a secret thing. Yeah. And before the NFL Network even existed, it was like NFL Films would talk about this thing that happened in. Say again?
The mythical Dion 40.
Dion's 4140 and all this other stuff.
Sweatpants and slippers or whatever it was, the story was. Yeah.
So to see the NBA try to do their version of it, to me, that's like the one thing that the NBA has done where I'm like, you guys didn't have to do that.
Well, see, so I don't watch it.
Mm-hmm.
But the casual fan is interested, and the internet experts like are all over it, and that's kind of like the market.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like guys are like, you know, like well, there's that drinking game where how many times Jay Billis says wingspan, you know? And it's like it's a huge thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you see how many like general managers get caught up in, you know, these, because the NBA Combine outside of the scrimmages don't translate. Like the results don't translate to the prospects at all. Whereas football, it translates a lot more. Like if you could run a 4.2, they'll find a spot for you to be productive. Whereas a guy with a 42-inch vertical, you might just need to go, you know, to Rucker and do dunk contests. You know?
But, you know, we've also seen like guys get drafted a little higher because of the combine and then not really, I don't want to say pan out, but you know, Vernon Davis, I don't know if you remember, Vernon Davis ran like a 4.4 at the combine for a tight end, which was kind of unheard of when he was coming out of Maryland. And
he had a couple of Pro Bowl years.
Yeah, but that's like he was like a number 6 pick. You think of a top 10, you know, tight end. And you know, he went to a mediocre Niners team that didn't get better until kind of on his way out. And then he's played for some teams.
You look at the Detroit Lions, the Detroit football Lions. How many top 10 picks did they have that didn't pan out? These dudes drafted freaking Rodney Peete to run the run and shoot, and then drafted Andre Ware to run the pro style, and put a fullback in front of Barry Sanders one time, and he broke every single record. So it's like, okay, it's like, well, it's at the end of the day, it's a team sport, and it's got football's, a lot of moving parts, and
there is a lot of moving parts.
But even look at Vernon Davis, like he, as a number 6 pick, if he would have went to the Patriots,
oh Jesus,
and so I don't think the scouts were wrong. I don't think the combine was wrong. I just think, Mike Singletary doing the whole taking his pants down or whatever, like all that.
Well, that's what what's his name says with the slick back hair. I can't think of his name. Mel Kiper Jr. He says, "Look, man, at some point you got to blame coaches." I was like, you might have a point there, Mel Kiper Jr. But I wanted to get more into in this discussion about basketball season. So they played in a bubble. I didn't watch one basketball game, not because I'm boycotting for any sort of silly reason. I just didn't watch it because honestly, it looked like practice, and I'm talking about practice. Did you watch basketball?
I watched pretty much any game I was home to watch.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's a story about, I think it was the day after Jamal Murray scored 40 points back-to-back games.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a picture on someone's Instagram, I forget who it was, is another player, but it was him and then a bunch of other players from other teams kind of walking by and talking. Mm-hmm. And the caption was basically like, "This is exactly how it is AAU in Vegas." Mm-hmm. "Oh, you see that one dude from Carolina? He scored like 40, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, we seen him at Circus." Like, that kind of, like, it was a super AAU vibe. Mm-hmm. Not many people in the stands, even the style of play, because of the time off, and you're not able to put in, these more, elaborate game plans and scouts and stuff. The game was a lot different, without having 30,000 people in the stand.
Yeah.
Affecting home court advantage, it was a lot different. Even like the whole Black Lives Matter branding was so like cringy to me.
That, I wouldn't say that turned me off, because I think the NBA, from a marketing standpoint, they've done a good job at that. I personally hate it because it's so empty.
Yeah.
And the NBA is great at performative gestures. The NBA is like the Nancy Pelosi of sports. They will rip up a speech. They will start. The NBA is to me, the NBA's Kente Cloth Neal. And this was so interesting because everyone and a lot of people that I truly, truly respect went bananas when they struck, when those guys were like, "We're not going to play."
Yeah.
And then when I saw, I can't think of the brother's name on the show, the NBA wrap-up show. Was it Kenny
Smith?
Kenny Smith, when he took his thing off, he walked up, he goes, I can't, I played, I'm going to walk off. It felt a little performative. It might not have been. I don't know, brother.
I thought that was dope. And then you have Shaq and Charles kind of, I don't want to use the coon word, but like, it was just like any type of like genuine kind of like emotion in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Got just within about a day and a half, 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was like, dude, this would be dope if they don't play.
I was rooting for it because I don't know if anybody remembers this, and I haven't seen anyone really cover this. Right before they went on strike, there was a piece, if it wasn't in the Atlantic, then it was in Business Insider, that the viewership was so far down.
Yeah, across all sports.
But especially for the NBA, because that's what was going on at the time. And lo and behold, viewership is down. No one's really talking about basketball outside of the sports community. And then the NBA goes on strike, and left-wing media, Richard Wolff, you know, I love that guy. Left-wing economist Richard Wolff is got analysts on talking about the strike and workers' rights and blah 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 blah. And I was like, you know, as good as this seems, it just doesn't feel genuine. And lo and behold, the word was it Obama and Jordan?
Obama and Jordan were very instrumental in doing what Obama and Jordan are known for doing,
Mm-hmm.
for being who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of guys. But there's some significant guys that, you know, didn't necessarily want to go along with it, but weren't in a position to not. You know, so it was just one of those things. Like, there's a series on Netflix that focuses on coaches.
Yeah.
One of the episodes is on Doc Rivers,
Mm-hmm.
and hearing him explain how the Clippers decided to not boycott that playoff game when the Donald Sterling thing happened,
Mm-hmm.
it made me nauseous.
Well, you know, can you elaborate on that? Because I think one of the episodes, maybe not me and you, but I know I've had a discussion about that. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, no, the Clippers were ready to not. They were like not going to play. It was going to be a playoff game, a televised playoff game, and you know Donald Sterling came out. And, you know, it got exposed, all the crazy, you know, off the wall racist stuff, you know, he was saying and doing, and the whole vibe of that interview with Doc Rivers was he didn't tell them not to boycott, and he was gonna, you know, support whatever they decided, but he was definitely like leaving the door open to play and let's do something else because you guys have worked too hard to get here and play in this game, and it's about the team and it's not about everyone else. Well, it's actually literally about everyone else. You know, like, could you imagine that same logic where it's like, yeah, they're killing all these black people that are unarmed and innocent, but you know what? We've worked too hard to get to the NBA finals.
But doesn't that become the logic though in workplaces? You know, as we've kind of defanged unions by getting a lot of the socialists out of unions, when we talk about work stoppages, that kind of becomes a language because so many people like to use sports analogies. And here we have this situation where these guys have it gets no more cartoonish and racist than Daniel Sterling. Maybe Donald Trump is equally as cartoonish and racist as Daniel Sterling was at that time with what he got caught with doing. And I'm just talking about the phone call. We don't even have to get into his business practices. But here you have these players that find out about this. They're, of course, outraged. And they go, well, you know what? Fuck it. Let's show how much power we have and not play. And then they end up turning their shirts inside out.
Like, you heard about what's going on with the Wichita State basketball coach?
No.
So Wichita State over the past 8-10 years has become one of the better, you know, mid-majors. You know, They go far in the NCAA tournament. They've got guys in the NBA. The coach's name is Greg fucking Marshall. And he's been one of those guys where over the past, you know, 8-10 years, it's been like, he's doing such a great job in this mid-major program. Why isn't he getting jobs at a bigger college? And people always kind of wonder that, you know. And then it just came out. There's a lawsuit with some players, and apparently, you know, this is well documented that he's a hothead. You know, like he, you know, screaming at refs, trying to fight refs, blah blah blah. But apparently, that's just the tip of the iceberg. He, you know, there's a situation where there was a student that parked in his, you know, assigned parking by the gym because he needed to go pick up an assignment, and left before the coach, you know, needed to park. But the coach saw him in the parking in the spot and chased him down and cussed him out like, "Do you know who I am?" And saying racist stuff, bullying, staff members in and out of the basketball program. Supposedly he punched a player in the back, like just that type of stuff. And first of all, like me and some other coaches were talking about it, and it was like, what would you do if he did that to one of our guys? I talked to a JC coach about it, a couple high school coaches about it, and it was like, the players generate, or the players are the team. The coach is the one that's getting paid $3 million a year, so the university is going to back him, and they've turned a blind eye to it. But first of all, why doesn't that 20-year-old physical specimen turn around and just punch dude in the face? There's a power dynamic. Number two, why doesn't that kid's family, AAU coach, high school coach, show up on campus and punch him in the face? It's a power dynamic. Why don't all the players, including the dozens of players that were either current or former players that came out and supported and wrote letters to support the complainants, why don't all the AAU coaches in Kansas and neighboring states decide, hey, we're not going to send kids to Wichita State? But there's all it takes is, if there's 50 AAU teams in Kansas and neighboring states, all it takes is for one coach to be like, you know what? I know that Wichita State has open scholarships since no one's going there. I'm gonna get these kids there, and I'm gonna try to get my camp fees, get my money up, and send these kids there. Or it takes, so I think 6 players in the last, maybe like 6 or 8 players in the last 2 years have transferred out, and rightfully so. But like, all it takes is for, one of the starters, one of the team captains, you know what? I don't think y'all should transfer, man. Like, it's my senior year, and I'm cool with coach. I'll talk to him, and let's just stick it out because I think we can win this year. And that can prolong that type of abuse for another 2-3 years. And since it's college, 2-3 years, now you have a whole new group. And if the guys that have left are onto their adult lives, they're not thinking about it. And then now the next kid's getting punched in the back, and the next assistant coach is getting screamed out. The one, and like the stuff he was like spazzing out on was like some ridiculous thing.
Was it Bobby Knight level stuff?
No, it's like worse.
Ooh. Like
Bobby Knight's players, even the ones that he was like, he crossed the line with, they love Bobby Knight. Like guys ride or die with Bobby Knight. That's why he was able to last for like 30-something years. And he didn't really get to his head until, I want to say there was an article saying like, the later administrations, kind of let him do him because, oh, that's just Bobby. And he kind of, got kind of empowered to act a fool because he is who he is. But like earlier on, it seemed like, Isaiah Thomas, Keith Smart, all those guys, would be like, yeah, he yelled at me. Yeah, he even bumped me. But like, he also like made 1,000,001 calls for me and and stood up for me and made sure I went to class and, hugged me. Like that, I don't hear people saying about Greg Marshall.
Gotcha. So Greg fucking Marshall, the way you described it, was not because it was like Greg fucking Marshall.
Nah, it's like learn his name because he's a scumbag.
Like he's a douche.
Yeah.
So in the COVID era, which we're going to be dealing with for some time, even after this election, this is the way we're going to view sports.
Go away once it gets hot.
Remember when people were like, "Oh, it's going to change in the summer"? Like once the summer hits, and then people
Oh,
were like,
they're
hey,
definitely changing
dumbass,
in
it's
the summer.
summer in certain parts of the world. And people
It
were dying.
hella changed in the summer because people were outside. Like it was like
Dying,
a party,
yeah.
it was a party at the lake like every day.
It's crazy because I know this dude through music, and he is an American that now lives in China, in mainland China, and he puts up a lot of live feeds for like live music, and it's so funny because shit is just open there. Like they're good. There's hella parts of the world that are like, we're fine now.
Yeah.
New Zealand, like, we don't have any social distancing requirements. We're fine now.
No, but like Americans are like, 3 out of 10 people tried some of the stuff y'all told us to do, and it's not working, so we shouldn't do it at all. Like, what? Masks don't work because like I knew this one person that wore a mask one time and they got sick. What?
There's so much distrust in our public health system. A lot of that has to do, in my opinion, with the way that we look at it and have defunded it.
Yeah.
Yes, Phoenix. You want to say hello to Will? Phoenix wants to say hello to you. And he wants to say good night to the world. Say hi, Will.
What's up, dude?
That's his truck. He's trying to tell you. He wants to show you his truck.
Let me see your truck, dude.
For people new to the show, this is Phoenix Joaquin. He's my co-host. And the youngest boy. But if you look at I don't want to say the failings of the CDC, because I think the big kind of slip up that the CDC had was in the testing that came out. And good night, baby man. I love you. He's tired. And when that test came out, giving those false negatives, and we couldn't use that test, a lot of people lost their faith in the CDC. And then you kind of double down on that with this president that wanted the CDC to echo these sentiments of everything's fine, let's protect the market. And it caused this horrible like ripple effect of problem after problem. And then, add on top of all that whenever he hears what he doesn't want to hear, and by he I mean the president, he appoints a new person to handle the coronavirus task force that isn't even a scientist. And you look at other countries, and let's use China for example. There was issues when it first came out. Some of it had to do with tariffs. They weren't cooperating with the U.S. the way they used to, but also the U.S. cut back a big chunk of the staff that was in the Chinese CDC that we had there. But even after that, our response was just so bad.
I mean,
we don't have the ability to build hospitals in 6 days, employ that many people, feed that many people, and quarantine that many people like you can in a more centrally planned government.
I mean, you combine, American exceptionalism with, not, lowering taxes for the people that taxes can make significant, funding impact in stuff like building hospitals.
Yeah.
And then you also have the educational system, where it's like science is something you're born to hate and you don't necessarily believe in. And you hear kids say it all the time. It's like, what does that have to do with my real life? I'm never going to use none of this in my real life. Well, yeah, your real life has viruses now. I was watching this thing, like I watch a lot of like YouTube, like you ever seen like First Amendment audits?
No.
So it's basically like dudes with cameras that go to like government installations and stuff, and they'll just film, and inevitably someone's going to call the cops on them, and then they go to this whole spiel about the First Amendment, which is cool. It's entertaining sometimes, but like the one of the camera guys on one of the ones I'm watching was like, yeah, guys, I was doing my own research, and I just read that the coronavirus has been around for years. I'm like, dude, first of all, everything you said in that sentence sounds like it means something, but is not based on any, like, if you can't differentiate between the coronavirus, which is talking about this specific one, versus a coronavirus, then you're going to spread misinformation. And what was your quote unquote, I did my own research? Did you just put a bunch of YouTube links or, fucking, Google, like, were you like quoting, Ben Shapiro or, dude, did I tell you about the whole Tyler Durden thing?
We were talking about that online.
Yeah, so the dude posts an article by, it was I forget what the website was, but a very quick 5-second search, and this website is like written by one person based out of Bulgaria. Like there's no type of like credible like journalistic like research at all. It's all his like opinion that links to like these far right neo-Nazi websites, and on top of that the author of the article and the owner of the site goes by Tyler Durden. So he's not even using his real name. He's using a guy, the character that's
the make-believe guy from Fight Club.
So it was like, if that is who you're referring to try to prove your point, then how much of a real discussion can you have? And if you are presented with facts and you're empowered to say, well, that's just my opinion. No, there's like certain things you're not allowed to have an opinion on. It's either yes or no. Like I am holding a plastic fork. You can't have an opinion that I'm not holding a plastic fork.
Well, there's two sides to the fork holding.
Yeah. No, but right. I'm holding.
Yeah, that's the thing I hate with the two sides people.
Well, we're allowed to have our opinion. You're allowed to have your opinion on things where opinions can be had. I like strawberry ice cream. My sister thinks it tastes like Pepto-Bismol and wants to throw up. We're both right. We have opinions on strawberry ice cream. But if the ice cream has big chunks of strawberry in it, and I say, hey, there are strawberries there, you can't be like, I don't think so. I don't think those are strawberries. Or no, you can say I don't think those are strawberries, but you can't deny that those things that we're referring to are there.
I feel like
you and your hologram ice cream.
What's frustrating about a lot of these conversations as they revolve around sports to me is that, especially with like the NBA's bubble, we didn't hear about, because I think a few guys did catch corona in the bubble, right? Or no? They were all good with it.
The NBA got through their whole bubble season without anyone getting sick,
and not even a staff person got it. So you look at the NFL and college football, and one thing I was really excited about and sad about, because you know me, I love football and I love college football.
You're looking forward to 90,000 people going to that
Florida game.
Yeah.
Well, the coach got COVID. Yeah. And before we even get into that, like when the Pac-12 and the Big Ten and the Mountain West and the Mid-Atlantic Conference, I think, another conference, I can't remember which one, Big West, if that's still a conference, all said we're not going to do the season. And now what somebody said on Twitter, I think is so true, that it seems to be that college sports is pro sports with education as a side hustle. Like all these kids, Like the message that they sent out and all these others, like, we're not going to sacrifice our kids for this disease and yada, yada, yada. And next thing you know, the Big Ten goes, well, we're not going to miss out on this money that fucking the SEC is getting.
Who was that one coach that said, he said, like, yeah, the kids are going to be a lot safer on campus because if they don't have football, they're just going to be back on the street. like, code much?
Well, also, have you seen the LA Times did a great piece about the lawsuits that are coming down on universities now because there's kids suing, going, look, we understand that you can't have us in class and we're good with that, but we paid you money for the certain aspects of this education and we're not getting it. We're not getting a discounted rate. Like, you're charging us the full whop for this tuition, and all the other shit I got with my tuition I don't get anymore. And there's quite a few lawsuits coming down at major universities. And now you have, certain states that are wide open, like Florida. And that was why the coach for Florida was like, no, we want it wide open because we feel we lost the game because of the home field advantage of, I think it was Texas A&M. And keep in mind, there was probably 20,000 people in a house that fits like 80 to 90,000 people. So we're not even seeing full places filled. And to your earlier point about even basketball in front of 30, 40, 100 people, it changes the game when you don't have the crowd. And I think to not have the crowd, even, I don't think it makes everybody miss a free throw when they're boo.
Well, so I know, Barkley always has his asinine takes. My whole thing is like the bubble and lack of crowd makes it different. It might not be better or worse. I don't think you can quantify that, but could you imagine shooting a free throw with a game on the line in an empty gym? When's the last time one of those guys did that? You know what I'm saying?
But so you're saying that
if it's going to be like the people are saying it is an easy championship for LeBron because
no travel.
Well, doesn't it make it easy for his opponent too? So it's just different. It's no one's saying it's not different, but to make it easier or harder or better or worse, no, it's just different. It's not like it affects everyone but LeBron. It makes it easy for LeBron, but it makes it hard for everyone else. No, it's different for everybody. And the guys that can adapt to it, great. And the guys that can't adapt to it, there was probably something else that was going to, cause them issues in a different environment.
I definitely think, if anything, I wouldn't say it makes it easier for the LeBrons of the world, but and anyone that doesn't know me, I am a huge Denver Bronco fan. Yeah. You can love the Broncos as much as me, but you cannot love them more than me. And to watch the Broncos go to New England, and there was probably a few hundred people there, right, at the stadium, and win that game. I do think it's different when these guys can hear their defensive assignments and they're not getting rattled by the crowd, because I think that's an aspect of it.
Yeah, no, it's a factor. I just don't think it's
the factor.
I mean, it's a huge factor, but I don't think it's a factor that you can place a value on as far as good or bad, because it's going to affect both teams in a similar way. Like even with like basketball, like with the first like 6-7 games in the bubble, it was like so many technical fouls on either team. It's just if your team has guys that like to cuss a lot, and all of a sudden you remove the crowd and you still have the mic on the rim and the mic on the rest. Now it's like the whole world hears it. More fouls happen, and then like guys were struggling with not cussing or stuff like that, or same thing like you said, play calls. If you call out a play that LeBron and Rondo can hear, they're both savants. By the time you finish the last syllable, they're already telling the team what's going to happen. So now you take away the crowd noise and they can really hear what you're calling.
Well, that was a thing for the first or second game of the season. I can't remember who said it. It might have been Ben Roethlisberger, but he said that the other team could hear the snap count.
Yeah.
So they were moving the huddle back beyond 10 yards because the team could hear the snap count.
Yeah, but both teams got to do it.
Yeah. It's just, to your point, we're all getting used to this quote unquote new normal of sports. And at the end of the day, we live in a capitalist system. So how is it going to look? And what I find interesting is, I was at the homeless shelter hotels in East Oakland by the Coliseum. And one of the things that I was noticing was that all these hotels were kind of huddled in the same area. And I started to feel like where you could see outbreaks of COVID happening, especially in Oakland, they were happening in certain areas. Excuse me. And a lot of Black people live in that certain area of Oakland. A lot of Latin people also live in that certain area of Oakland. But at the end of the day, a lot of poor people live in that area of Oakland. A lot of poor people were working jobs in the what do we call them? The people essential labor market, right? Disposable labor, I think, is a better term for it. And the city is talking about clearing out a lot of these homeless camps and moving them more towards the Coliseum because you just have all this empty space because there's no business there, there's no teams there. And I felt like it, even before the city said this, months before when I got there, I was like, this feels like redlining. And with this virus, you're going to see a lot more redlining, and you're really going to find out where you are in your class status. As one person said, we didn't have a lockdown. We just found out middle class people had poor people bring them things. And I feel that as we're loosening certain restrictions on sporting events, I think the Niners just said that they can have people at the games now. So it's going to be more like college. And as college football is getting ready to roll out, again, keep in mind some of these areas that are going to be having looser restrictions are starting to heat up with COVID. But when we look at the areas that are hotter, it definitely is areas with people that are a little more exposed, poor people that live on top of each other, that have bigger families. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think sporting events are going to start to look real different. The class makeup of who can get to go to sporting events is going to be extremely different.
It's already been trending like that for the past however many years.
Oh yeah.
Like realistically, like if I want to go to a basketball game, well, not this past year with the Warriors, being horrible, but the past 5-6 years with the Warriors being the hottest ticket in town,
mm-hmm.
It's better for me to hop on the Southwest flight, fly up to Portland, and go to a game than it is to try to go to a game,
in San Francisco,
before San Francisco, because this past year was the first year in San Francisco, right?
Yes.
Yeah. No. So you just even in Oakland, it was like, between, trying to find an affordable ticket, BART, parking, whatever it may be. So I do for what $125 round trip. I can go to Portland, and just go to a game with Dame.
Mm-hmm.
Shit, you can't get a decent ticket for $125.
No.
To watch the splash.
I would love to know how much Jessica took me and some friends of hers to a Warriors game on Christmas. And it was interesting to see. Say again?
In Oakland?
No, Christmas.
No,
so in San Francisco.
Oh,
at the new stadium. So it was interesting to see the new stadium, the new Warriors. I'm not going to stop liking sports because of certain aspects about it, but there was definitely something about the new stadium that kind of rubbed me the wrong way.
I
can't put my finger on it exactly.
I could totally imagine what it, like I've been to one game at Pac Bell,
Mm-hmm.
and I went to one game at Candlestick.
Mm-hmm.
And there's probably like a 15-year gap between two games. And those, I've only been to maybe 4 baseball games in my life. And the Pac Bell game, just the energy was different.
Didn't we all go? Wasn't it like me, you, and Tanaka, like a Giants playoff game?
No, I don't remember going to a playoff game.
I feel like I know me and Tanaka went to a playoff game. It is a different energy because you're dealing with a different kind of fan.
Yeah.
So moving forward, I think the new sports normal, especially in the Bay Area, because you moved the team from Oakland to San Francisco, to this new part of San Francisco, if you will. And then you move the football team from San Francisco that has been in the hood in San Francisco for umpteen years. You move them all the way smack dab at the edge of Silicon Valley in Santa Clara. Like, you don't care about your fan base. You're just trying to get a new fan that's got, all this new tech money.
Yeah, no, I mean, you figure if you sell one seat for $500, it's better than selling, 10 seats at $50.
I guess.
And you don't get the $50 fan problems.
Mm-hmm.
Do
you think that, because like I told you, I didn't watch one basketball game. It's been hard for me to watch college football with no West Coast teams. The NFL is really weird with this pumped in crowd noise. Do you think people are starting to care less about sports?
So I read a thing, and it kind of just showed. It was a chart that showed like the viewership of pretty much every sport that's going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
The NBA was down like 40-something%.
Jesus.
Golf was down like 40-something%. Hockey was down 30-something%. And I mean, if I were in a different financial situation and I had to scrape a little harder, first thing I would cut would be cable.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And if I'm cutting my cable, or if I've got to do other things, do I have time to log on my computer to watch the game?
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, like, because of everything getting pushed back, everything's happening at the same time. Like,
mm-hmm.
when has it ever happened where football, baseball, basketball, all of it happening at the same time, not just that one day that everything overlapped,
Yeah.
And then, so as far as going forward, like, who knows what it's going to look like, a month from now, 2 months from now, So
I feel like the NBA Finals was just so unspectacular, considering they had all that hype from the strike, and then it just really flattened back out, and LeBron wins a championship, and then people are like, "Oh yeah, fuck that guy."
Yeah, I mean, even the time of day the games were played,
mm-hmm.
like like they were played on at 4:00 or 6:00 West Coast time. Like, who gets off of work at to get home to watch at 4?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think sports just in general is down. Then all the other factors as far as like, the fans that normally don't spend, a couple $1,000s to go to a game, that watch from home,
mm-hmm.
aren't able to watch from home, or got other shit going on. It's just cutting cable is big. The time of day is big, and then just kind of like, I'm sick of it. I'm sure out of that 40-something% the NBA was down, no more than maybe 0.1% was because, Cooter didn't want to see, Black Lives Matter t-shirts. I don't think that was a huge factor.
No.
Because I'm sure that's not the reason why they're not watching golf and hockey.
I think we're also not. I feel like the powers that be that run sports didn't factor in the fact that so many Americans are without right now. You know, the homeless claims have slowed down, but they're not homeless. I'm sorry, unemployment claims have slowed down, but that's not saying much. It's still at a breakneck pace.
The whole beginning of the shelter in place
Mm-hmm.
and the TV ads with these celebrities. I think we talked about it last time. It was like the most like it was horrible. Like, hey guys, I know you guys are having a rough time, but what I do is I'm knitting and spending more time with family.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess what? I got to go pick up these groceries for you, deliver them to you.
So you can knit, bitch.
For $4. I got to do that for 8 hours, and drive Uber for another 4 hours. But since, you know, no one's taking Uber, you know, so it's, yeah, those ads were so horrible. Like watching a celebrity tell me how to cope with boredom was like, dude, I'm not bored at all. Like,
you're gonna tell me you don't like it when Ellen DeGeneres tells you it feels like she's in jail in her estate?
And I like
Oh, Frisco says the Staples Center rubbed me the same wrong way after growing up at the Great Western Forum. I can imagine, because those are two extremely different places in two extremely different parts of fucking town.
Yeah, and even with like you look at the old games at the Forum.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you still had your Jack Nicholson and Diane Cannon, but you also had like how the hell did he get in here? All these stories, like a lot of like, you know, like either coaches or people that I know from LA, and they always tell stories about sneaking into the Forum.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think you're sneaking into the Staples Center. You might have to like do an elaborate like Instagram scam, like people do that, but like there's no like, you know, leaving a door open. No, I was reading this, watching this thing about how all these like social media influencers try to like just come up on free shit. And it's hilarious. It's like, hey Jay, I love your podcast. We should do a partnership. Why don't you give me free t-shirts and I'll take pictures of them on my Instagram? Motherfucker, you just trying to get a free t-shirt.
I saw that actually on to a degree when I did the Yo Gabba tour. There was always, in bigger markets, it wasn't everywhere, more so LA and New York, there was always someone that was like pitching something and they wanted to get a picture of somebody wearing the thing. Like that was the whole thing. Like if we can get Kanye West holding this thing, then that just skyrockets our brand to the next level.
Well, that's kind of the opposite direction, because at least they're like, I'm gonna give Kanye this shirt and hope he wears it, versus they're literally saying, hey, these people are like calling restaurants. Hey, you know, I've got 7,000 followers and I was thinking we should do a partnership. So, you know, if you can like, you know, give me and a +3 free meal, well, you know, we'll promote it on our page.
Jesus.
Like what? That's not how it works at all. But, you know, like
that's what, oh man, they kind of sound like scumbags.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah.
It's like looking at those memes, like they're like people were posting like screenshots of text messages from these, you know, influencers or whatever. And it's like, first of all, your job is an influencer. Like that's your claim to fame. That's how you define yourself in the world. I take pictures of stuff and talk about stuff, and people look at my pictures and read what I say, and
a lot of them are just like pretty people. Like I'm a pretty person and people follow me because they're hoping they can see like a tit, and I'm an influencer because I give the hope.
Dude,
I sell the hope of a tit.
Speaking of which, you saw that one Ukrainian influencer that was the COVID denier.
No.
Yeah, he's, you know, flying around to different countries. Oh, COVID's fake, this, that, and the other. And then this dude about a week ago caught that shit and, you know, put up a post saying, yeah, I'm sick. You guys pray for me. Then like 3 days later, he's dead.
Oh, he actually died?
Died. And he was like, you know, like in great shape. You know, he's got like, you know, 1,000,001, you know, pictures with his shirt off. And it was like, Okay, maybe it's if you're a real influencer, maybe the people that look at your friggin' page like wear a friggin' mask and stay home for a little bit.
Instead of fucking going out being super spreaders.
Yeah, no, like dude was like just like literally like bouncing around, just spreading that dumb shit. Like or like that one dude that was licking toilets and shit. It's like, bro, what's wrong with you people? Like seriously, like
again, it goes back to what you said about people not believing science is important or real.
Oh no, so I was gonna talk about that.
Yeah.
In addition to the American exceptionalism,
Mm-hmm.
you also have this big push of anti-intellectualism.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, these people that go to these fancy schools think they're better than us, but they're not. Maybe not like as far as like human value, but like as far as like learning shit, like they're literally better than you. But like, well, my opinion is just as valid. I didn't go to your fancy schools and learn your doctor sciences and what? Like, dude, I want to say I posted it where I overheard on my.
You did post it, but yeah, talk about it.
Yeah, like walking to lunch the other day from work, and I overheard two people arguing, and one person was basically like, why would a nurse know more than a PhD when they're talking about like COVID or some viruses or some shit? Why would a nurse know more than a PhD? And the other lady was like, what does he have a PhD in?
Sports science.
Yeah. Like no, because
English
that has the word science in it. Like, if your PhD is in like medieval literature, no, you're not more qualified to tell me about COVID when this nurse works 12 hours a day, stick tubes down people's throats to try to help them breathe.
It's funny. It's funny that you say that because so I spend a lot of time on this show talking to people that have a hell of a lot more schooling than me. So I read their books or as much of their books as I possibly can. I try to write as much as I possibly can to try to have some sort of understanding about what I'm talking about.
Just quick interjection.
Mm-hmm.
So just because you've gone to school and have advanced in school does not necessarily make you a better thinker or more informed on a particular subject. Mm-hmm. But the fact that you don't go to school on purpose or you don't believe in stuff doesn't make you, equal as far as an intellectual or as in the realm of knowledge. Like, yeah, no, because I mean, I know a lot of idiots that went to college, but at the same time, I believe in the concept of knowing things.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think that's where it is, where it's like, I don't believe in knowing stuff. And, people kind of always pawn that off on the black community. And like there's a lot of like anti-intellectual, poor white people, that's kind of a thing that has been put in place, and then you exacerbate it with the last few years of Betsy DeVos cramming crap through, and you combine that with all that other stuff and it's a perfect storm.
It's like to your point, all I was trying to say was like, I don't feel like I know enough because part of that education and part of those guys getting that doctorate is they have an idea and then someone is challenging that idea, that thesis. And when you go to YouTube University, no one's challenging your bullshit thesis. Sorry, guys. You're not writing paper upon paper with footnotes about your bullshit thesis. But I can pull out a bunch of bullshit books. I don't know if you remember this, Will, but one day we all went to like the dollar store when we were in the office. So Will and I used to work together in the early 2000s. and I bought Bill O'Reilly's book for like $1 as a joke. And me and Peter would take turns like reading it. And I think you would too, because it was so ridiculous. And when you read like, what do I have here? I have Torrey Reed. Torrey Reed's going to come in on the show soon. There's just footnote after footnote in this book because it's an academic text. So if he's going to challenge Barack Obama or Ta-Nehisi Coates' perspective on redlining, which he does in the case against race reductionism, you have to have some historical context and you have to have facts.
Well, Bill O'Reilly's not going to, because his whole existence is based off of the benefits of redlining.
Now, this book is filled with not facts. The Iron Triangle, how Democrats are using race to divide Americans in their quest for power and how we can stop them. I have to read you this part of the book because when I read it, I was like, you have to be shitting me. This is on page 2. Some have said, that's how it starts off. Like, that's letting you know right there. Like, this is bullshit.
Who wrote that?
This was written by Vince Everett Ellison. I don't know who he is, but this is what he looks like. Looks like a nice guy. I'm sure he gives his nephews like crisp $20 bills for Christmas.
He's black.
As black as hell.
Yeah, so I mean.
Oh, hold on. I got to show you this picture. I got to show you. So he's got pictures in here to prove how black he. Ultimately, at the end of the day, this book is basically saying that if you want to be black, you have to have your blackness validated by the Republican Party, not the Democratic Party. But these pictures are awesome. So he's got here's a picture of him and his daughter and Lindsey Graham. And here's a picture of him at the Million Man March. So just in case you think he's a coon and you're going to be like, oh, you're a sellout. Like, I have my plaque that says I was black. And this is him and the Bush family. Because,
Was he at the Million Man March protesting?
This is him and James Meredith, the first black man into University of Mississippi. This is him and Rudy Giuliani, because when I think of dumbass white people to be hanging around, I definitely want to hang around Rudy Giuliani.
You can fool me, but I cannot fuck with Rudy Giuliani.
Wait, I have to read this to you because I have to hear your take on this. And please, anyone listening, chime in with your take on this shit because it's hilarious to me. Some have said the civil rights movement was a betrayal, sham, and a con orchestrated against black Americans by very evil people who call themselves liberals, now Democrats. The betrayal included using any and every promise imaginable in an effort to hijack 2 million dormant black votes in the South, then using them to take over the Democratic Party and the rest of America. To what end? To drive all Christian values from America and then use America's power to implement their sadistic views worldwide? They did this by infiltrating and then compromising the 3 foundational institutions of the black community: the black preacher, black civic organizations, and the black politicians. I call this trifecta the Iron Triangle. Sadly, the evidence tilts heavily in favor of this charge. In his Pulitzer Prize-winning book, Parting the Waters, Taylor Branch wrote that in 1956, the Communist Party, or liberals in Moscow, ordered their agents in the civil rights movement to establish a separate national development for American Negroes modeled on the Soviet republics. He also really, really hates any sort of socialist movements. So in essence, he hates Martin Luther King and Malcolm X.
You know what that reminds me of? So remember Supernatural, the rapper?
Uh-huh.
So imagine, okay, so I'm Supernatural, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're Sway.
Okay.
But instead of being Sway, you're like Roger Stone.
Oh, Jesus. That's
right?
very different than Sway.
I'm going to freestyle and just say stuff, and I'll freestyle off that topic. That's what it sounds like. because it sounds like rap. But like, that used to irritate the shit out of me because he'd be like, yo, I'ma do ya. Talking to my boy on this computer. Like, what? Ooh, he said computer and he's actually on a computer. Like, that's
like I got given this book by somebody that I really love, and it
as a gag or like as a hey, you need to get your blackness validated.
Candace Owens and people like this are poison because they need a little bit of truth. And I was talking to my buddy Marcus with the Left Flank Vets the other night. He usually his show goes on now, and we usually talk when our shows are done. And he goes, that's the con. They give you that little bit of truth, because there is some truth to that. There is a black misleadership class. We can't act like it doesn't exist. Does it exist in the churches? To a degree, yes, it does. The black church is not what it was in the years of slavery. It's not what it was in the Reconstruction years, and definitely during the civil rights. But to say that there was this like evil socialist movement and not really understand what socialism or communism is, you just deem them evil, it means that you really have nothing to say. And mind you, none of this is footnoted. So this is just, some say.
All he had to do was put an asterisk, and then at the bottom, asterisk, some people said it.
Like,
who said it? Some people.
And the thing about like, the thing that I hate about a lot of shit when it comes to like black people is we are viewed as a monolith. We're viewed as a fucking monolith. When you don't do certain things that fit into the perspective of what people think black people are supposed to do.
Check this out, dude. On that note.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You know this better than anybody.
Coach Mass,
mm-hmm.
right? Love him to death. Smart guy, experienced older gentleman.
I gave him this book, by the way.
But like sometimes, like we run into these walls when we talk, and
mm-hmm.
I really have to kind of massage the talking point, because when he starts talking about the black community or the Asian community,
mm-hmm.
and I always try to like, it's not that simple.
Mm-hmm.
Like even if it's meant to be a compliment, the Asians are so good at pulling their money. It's like, nah, if you look at the East, like the Cambodians in East Oakland, there's not a lot of money pulling going on. Like, and
they can take their watch and make a television.
Yeah, but like I mean, kind of explaining how the whole model minority thing is not a compliment. It works against a lot of people, and you see it so much at Oakland High, because you do have recent immigrants from China that couldn't get into Skyline or Tech,
mm-hmm.
but they're still academically, in a different mind state than your Laotians and Cambodians that, are East Oakland kids, and expecting the Cambodian from the 90s to be good at math because his eyes go like this. You're not serving him. And then all of a sudden now now there's something wrong with him.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Asians, are you familiar with China Mac? Yeah. So, like,
thanks, Saeed and DJ Vlad. But yeah, I am, because of that reason. Yeah.
Yeah, but like with China Mac, like there's like one or two songs I like, but even the songs I don't like, he's not a bad rapper. He's not an Asian rapper at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's raps good, but like I always like try to support some of the things he does. Because as far as quote unquote Asians go, I think I relate more to him than Crazy Rich Asians.
Than Andrew Yang?
I don't know enough about Andrew Yang to know anything about him. But like, like the Crazy Rich Asians, when everyone's all hyped up about that shit. Nah, I don't relate to that at all.
But people, to me, Crazy Rich Asians is the same way people get hyped up about like certain Tyler Perry movies. Like it kind of not. Let me slow down a little bit, because it definitely had the crazy rich ones that, you and I are not that close to. But the way people wanted to view that and how they super romanticized that lifestyle. And I get that to a certain degree. It's like, well, either I'm fucking Joy Luck Club leaving Mao's China, or I'm in Singapore rich as fuck just for no reason other than to be rich as fuck. So
yeah, no, I mean like
which is why I don't know if you watch the Korean movies. Bong Joon is so amazing to me with Parasite.
I haven't seen that. I heard.
Oh, you're killing me.
I don't watch movies, but I've been trying to watch more since I've been locked down at home. But no, like even like the whole Jeremy Lin thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you saw Jeremy Lin play basketball in high school,
Which Will did.
he's not an Asian kid. He's a Bay Area guard. And when people talk about Bay Area guards, you know what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Tough nose. Like he's got a lot of similarities to Dame just by how they carry themselves,
Mm-hmm.
And Jeremy Lin is not. I don't want to say not Asian, but he's American.
Mm-hmm.
He's American from the Bay of some yellow descent. Like people, like I saw a lot of interviews early on during the Insanity thing where like, well, what do you have to say to the people of, I'm from Palo Alto, and like people don't realize. When I say people, just like people that aren't in tune to the nuance. It's like there's a difference between a Jeremy Lin and a Yao Ming. Jeremy Lin is me.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? He's,
from the Bay.
He's from the Bays. He's American. Even though he speaks Taiwanese or whatever, English is probably either his first language or he learned it concurrently.
Mm-hmm.
And his experiences are not from Taiwan or China. His experiences is playing in Rumble in the Bay in San Jose, or playing, at the Jerry Freitas, showcase. What's up, Pam? The showcase, there's number one, that's where the representation I think is missing.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think there's enough people in power to even have that representation like exist. Like I've always said, I would love to see like a regular ass Asian American dude on a TV show that's not a main character, that's just there because they're all around. You know what I'm saying? Like, just, hey, what's up, Tom? Oh, what's up? And that's his line for the episode. It's not, oh, this is the episode where about racism, or this is the episode about, kung, whatever it may be. Hey, Fred from my English class on the Nickelodeon, high school show. It's not even math class. Fred is in my history class, and he's a B- student, and he's cool.
Mm-hmm.
What else is his character arc? There isn't. Like, yeah, like I think there needs to be so fresh off the boat.
Yeah, fresh off the boat. Yeah,
I could see how Eddie Wong, bailed on that whole project. I don't know how you feel about Eddie Wong, but like,
I watched. He's the main guy, right? He was the dad or something like that.
No, he's the guy that wrote the book, Fresh Off the Boat, that was based on. He's like a restaurateur, former lawyer for the Innocence Project. Like he's a real interesting dude.
I never watched Fresh Off the Boat. The only time I saw that guy in any, well, I never watched the show, but the only time I watched anything with that guy or even Ali
Randall Park.
Yeah, he from he's from LA. He's not from the Bay.
From LA.
Right?
He's the rap.
So he's in a movie where he's a rapper with lyrics born.
Yeah.
You always be my maybe.
Yeah.
I love that movie.
Yeah, no. So the reason why like it's actually on the tip of my mind is I actually watched Lyrics Born does like Instagram interviews, like little live sessions, and he did one with Grouch.
Mm-hmm.
So I watched like the whole thing, and like he shouted me out and everything. But it was just funny because like he talks about that a lot, about representation, and to me like. He's a Berkeley kid. You know what I'm saying? He's an Oakland kid. Went to St. Mary's. And his experience being an Asian in America, being kind of goes back to the whole WNBA thing. You know, you have your African Americans, you have your Asian Americans, you have your whatever Americans, and then if you see a white person, oh, he's just regular.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And you know, when you don't realize that's happening, then you normalize all the stigmas you put on certain communities, good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I was tutoring 3 kids in Algebra 2 today before I got on, and you know, it always comes up multiple times every year when I tutor math that I'm good at math because I'm Asian.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not meant from a bad place. It's just the narrative that they've always known, that I've always known.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I always explain to him kind of the
Malcolm Gladwell.
The Malcolm Gladwell thing, but also like, dude, like by the end of that tutoring session, they went from being confused as hell to being able to do a problem that I gave them 3 minutes to do, and they all finished it in 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So did you just become more Asian in the past 15 minutes? Or was that just a skill you worked on for 15 minutes in a diligent way? And if you do that every day for a month, you're going to be good at it. You know, beauty of sports, you know, hard work can equalize to an extent, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, like, yeah, the few episodes I did watch fresh off the boat,
mm-hmm.
you know, it was cool until it got cringe worthy, and then I kind of just couldn't watch it anymore. But Eddie Wong, even though he's got some stuff that I don't necessarily agree with, like he's kind of I don't like using the word coon, but sometimes he coons it up because, you know, his story is you know, forget where he's born, like Florida or something, but you know, parents opened a restaurant, and you know, he didn't fit in because there was a lot of white people, a lot of racism, and he kind of gravitated towards hip hop and basketball.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like when he first had his first cooking show, food show, or whatever, you know, all the music was, you know, I think Cameron actually did a custom song for him, and you know, Ghostface and all those people, and like he sometimes kind of like hip hop, you know, what is the phrase I'm looking for? He's like a hip hop caricature sometimes, and I think that's kind of problematic. Where it's like it's like when white people use hip hop slang in like kind of unintentionally like mocking in a very condescending way,
mm-hmm.
like bling bling. Like, yo, hey Jay, this interview was mad fresh, like you know, shit like that. Like he kind of comes off with that vibe, even though like I know that that's kind of how he grew up, but like playing up that kind of the clownishness of it kind of makes you know, the people he's referring to be seen as clowns, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, like him, you know, reading up on his history, working with the Innocence Project, and then his more recent cooking show where he actually is traveling to different places and going into the history of different cuisines. I thought that show was super dope, but I could see why, knowing more about him, why he distanced himself from that show super early on. Because he was like, you know, you take these common sitcom tropes that fit into nice 23-minute, you know, conflict resolution, couple jokes, end of episode, and you kind of turn these real nuanced life experience into just 23-minute Asian jokes. You know, even though they're good intentioned and you have representation, you know, a person that's not trying to hear that shit that you know watches the show is going to be, you know, these little ching chongs are kind of funny.
Do you think that's the same thing that happened to Margaret Cho with her show? I can't remember the name of it.
I don't know because I never found her funny.
Wow.
Like
no, I get it. No, I get it.
I
thought we were going to get deep into the pop culture of Asians on TV having their own show.
No, me and Ryan were talking about Joe Coy.
Mm-hmm.
Me, Ryan, and Ray were actually talking about Joe We're trying to explain to Ray, like, dude is funny. Dude is legit funny. He's got some really good like stand-up routines. But he also hit a niche where his last like 2 or 3 Netflix specials, you can tell he's strictly catering to the nurses of Daly City. And every single routine has got to have that one, segment where he goes into a bit about the accents and, and it's like where before, like he would just like, he would do the accent of his mom. But it was like, when he was like 25 living at home and he wanted to go to the bar. And she'd be like, "Oh, Jokoi, you gonna get rupeed." Like shit like that. But now it's like, all right, now's the time I go into my, supernatural rapping about, hey, give me an object. You're like, my shtick now, and the people that don't know what's going on is gonna be amazed by it. So like, yeah, no, I mean, that's why it's like there is nuance. There's levels to this shit. Like, like Joe Coy is not, a clown, but he caters to, he's got to fill his stadiums. And when it comes to San Francisco, the average comedy fan, like, was probably not going to go. The hardcore comedy fans will probably give him, depending on what was the last thing they heard from him. But hey, if you need to go to the hospital, you're not going to get seen that night. Those hospitals going to be empty.
You're a dick.
I actually think that might have been one of his jokes. That hilarious. Back before he was doing the shtick, and I think he said something about like, the crowd is like, hey, where my Chinese people at? Where my Filipinos at? And hey, hope no one's in the hospital or something like that. And, Auntie is all at the show.
I mean, no, he's a thing. He's officially like a thing. I think his last special was in Hawaii too, to like double down on it.
Speaking of Filipinos, did I ever tell you that I didn't know what a Filipino was until my senior year in high school?
I believe it.
Yeah.
I didn't know what one was till I was like 12.
Yeah, like, and mind you, I used to walk to school with Yanni.
But he's only part.
Yeah, but like, I was just assuming that, hey, his last name is Poland.
It's not like we went to Pinole Valley.
Yeah, no, I didn't know what a Filipino was. And I think Naomi Clark was part Filipino. But anyways,
Word?
Yeah, but yeah.
So, in closing, is there anything that you have to promote or shout out before we go?
Yeah. I being on Facebook for so many hours a day, especially at work. Hope my boss isn't watching. But like I was watching these very good intentioned but horrible memes. Like, there's one where that I'm specifically talking about where, it's a cartoon of a guy like giving money to the homeless, but he's taking a picture, selfie of it himself doing it.
And, I hate that, by the way.
Yeah, but basically, like, if you're gonna do charity, you shouldn't publicize it. And I was like, yeah, it sounds cool. The meme looks cool, but at the same time, one of my former players who worked for some startup, he's doing very well for himself. And about a year ago, months before the pandemic hit, he was posting videos of an organization that he spends a lot of time and energy working with when he's not at work, called People's Breakfast Oakland.
Okay.
And it's one of those things where it's like, if he didn't post those videos and those flyers for events, I would have never known he was working with them. And, when I got part of my tax return, I bought a bunch of tents. I went on their wish list and, because number one, I did my research and it was a reputable organization. Number two, it's a reputable organization that I know, now that I know a couple of people, that are heavily involved in. And, if they're not promoting, I wouldn't have known about it. And not only did I, donate a couple of dollars, whatever, but like one of my other former players, one of my Asian League players, he's doing pretty well for himself in Southern California. And I'd say probably once a year he checks in on me. It's like I feel like an old ass man when a grown adult calls me to check on me. But he's like, hey, coach, if you gotta do any fundraising, like we did a wine tasting fundraiser a couple years ago, and he just randomly showed up, and so like he was like, yeah, I know, it's rough right now. If if you're doing any fundraising, or if any of your kids' families are struggling, I was like, go look up People's Breakfast Oakland. If it's something something you want to fuck with, donate to them. And so from one video got to me, got to a couple other people. And so, yeah, I understand if your only reason for doing something charitable is for an Instagram, that's corny. But I don't see anything wrong with documenting charitable, endeavors or whatnot, because, it could, number one, promote the cause to get more resources and spread the word. And, you never know who you might inspire to do something else.
I don't have a problem with that. I think there's a humongous difference between the selfie people, which are very similar to the like, I went out on Thanksgiving and did this thing for the homeless, and actual organizations. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
The meme doesn't differentiate that. It's just a cool, quick, 2-second thing. Oh yeah. Like even with athletes, when they're talking about, why do you need to bring a camera if you're going to do charity? But then if they don't bring a camera, well, why doesn't he spend more time helping out the community? It's like, well, which way do you go? Like Rajon Rondo was known to show up at hospitals, like cancer centers and stuff, and bring like 50 Connect 4 boards and set them up in a circle where he could play all the kids at the same time. And apparently he's one of those guys, like he's super competitive, and like he, like I never really did baby talk with Jayla.
Yeah. Supposedly
he's like that with like 9-year-old cancer patients. Like, you lost 7 times in a row, right? Like he's that guy. And like, so I forget, like he was like, people were giving him crap for not being in the community in Boston or something like that. And then someone posted like, a thing he did a while ago. And when they posted that, they were like, well, why do you have to bring a camera? Like
yeah. Look, I did a whole episode. Please check it out on This Is Revolution podcast with a woman named Christy Lovich that works with the unhoused in Southern California. And she was kind of, there's 2 people that were definitely, I don't want to say the impetus, but they helped me leave the shelter. And she was one of them through reading a lot of what she was doing in Southern California, and Chris Smalls in New Jersey, who now I know through the show. And I'm glad I know that young man. And there's a lot of nice shit that people do, and the world of nonprofits is a very liberal world. And it's not about blowing it up and making and building it back better. It's about Band-Aids on bullet wounds and getting a lot of money for said Band-Aids. So some of these Band-Aids are gorgeous.
Yeah.
The bleeding isn't stopping. It's not even trying to stop. But fuck, that Band-Aid is tight.
It's like when the cops go to the community center and do the electric slide at the picnic. And then when it gets dark, that same kid that was you're doing the electric slide all of a sudden becomes suspicious.
Well, it becomes bigger than that, because what happens when that cop that does the electric slide falls in love with that kid? And when I say falls in love, I don't mean anything in a sexual manner. I just mean like I'm gonna follow this
Democrat type of way.
Say again?
Not like a liberal Democrat child porn ring type of way.
No, not in a QAnon fanboy kind of way. And I just want to shout out Josh Snelling says, check out Red Spin Sports on YouTube, Socialist Sports Analysis. Is that Dan Hisringhouse has whatever his name is? I can't pronounce his last name. Anyway, I think that's his show. But because you have a financial kind of incentive to keep the system the way it is. And you can't really understand that until you get in that world and you're like, oh, shouldn't we be trying to blow this shit up? And they're like, no, 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 no. You're trouble now. We have to keep everything the way it is. You know, go check out those hotels. I should link the piece that I wrote. I was on Davey D's show talking about it, about just the system in general and all the flaws. Like, there's good people in it because you have to have some sort of a heart to want to deal with a certain population. But that being said, when you do deal with certain populations, you're dealing with populations that you don't have to really, I don't want to say care that much about, but like sometimes people question you caring about certain people. Like, you're caring about them too much. Give them the scraps. That's enough. You know, they can't do anything in society. We're judging people on their labor value. What can you bring to the table? If I feel they don't bring anything to the table, F them.
Shit, not even labor value, it's consumer value.
Any value.
Yeah.
Right?
If you can't buy nothing from me.
You can, and I can't work you. So what do you do for me? So that's the way I view, the way we view, especially like the unhoused. And again, there are people doing some great work, because you can't just blow the system up tomorrow and think it's okay. Like, people need places to go now.
Was it Chicago? Was it somewhere in Colorado?
Philadelphia, where they got the hotels?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How is that like?
They pretty much demanded it, and the city was like, no, for a minute, and they finally got it a few weeks ago.
No. I'm talking about there was somewhere, I want to say Colorado. It wasn't a COVID thing. It was where they just spent money instead of like spending money on like moving around homeless people and food, feeding them and shit. They just designated like a bunch of buildings to house them, and supposedly like people were able to get on their feet and get get jobs and shit like that. I forget where it was at, but it was like a couple years ago. But it sounded interesting, and it also was like, yeah, it worked here, but no one else is allowed to do it anywhere, because that would fuck up our whole thing.
You know, it's funny. It's funny when you see things like the hotels, because in theory the hotels are a great idea, right? You have all these empty hotels, you have so many unhoused people, put them in the fucking hotels. That doesn't seem like rocket science. But when you look at like the funding dollars that we have set aside for that, it's really not that much for the state. You know, I had Randy Shaw on my show that works in housing, and when he spit out that statistic that LA alone in last year spent $1 billion to house 7,000 people, and Gavin Newsom has earmarked $500 million for the state. The state. That's not that much money.
Well, there's a lot of people that are anti-socialism that want the government to do something about the homeless.
Why don't we ask fucking Elon Musk for help, since his Bolivian coup didn't work?
It's a trickle down non-socialism socialism, I guess. I don't want to pay taxes, but I'm sick of these potholes on my.
Oh, we could, yeah. We that's another thing that I'm going to start doing. Now I can pivot to the Patreon. Thank you, Will. It's another thing I'm going to be doing in the Patreon is I'm going to be having more kind of one-on-one short lessons on what is socialism. And you can be a patron for as little as $3. And I'm going to put the link up on the screen. So we would love your support. Become a patron. There's patron only programming coming. This week will be one of the first patron only shows. You definitely get a lot of bonus content. We have some great Chris Riggins was on, and we have some really good Chris Riggins on patron only stuff. That's pretty awesome. Did you want to say something, Will?
Oh no, like I just have a story to tell next time I actually talk to Chris Riggins that I'm holding on to because I didn't want to be that guy. But now that he's pretty, doing pretty well for himself, I want to bust him out on it. And it's I don't even know if he'll remember it, but I've definitely hung on to it because I actually helped a guy I knew actually write comedy back in the day for a week.
It's a rough world, man. Yeah. I would never want to be a comic.
I would never either, but I writing was actually kind of fun. I've always liked writing, I think I could actually be good at it if I wanted to, push myself to, but I don't know. I don't think I'm that funny, but
I think you're pretty funny. I think
I could be funny off of other people. So if someone comes up with the premise, I think I could flesh it out and make some funny shit out of it.
So you're basically the supernatural of jokes, is that what you're saying?
No, not at all. I'm more like the Dr. Dre. I'm gonna buy this record store, but I'm not gonna actually go dig through the records. I'm gonna pay people to dig through the records. But once you choose that sample, I'm sprinkles on it, drums on it.
Turn it up real loud in the mastering.
Put Snoop on it,
and then it's a hit.
Yeah.
Well, my book recommendation for today, I only have one today. It is The Marginalized Majority, Claiming Our Power in a Post-Truth America. This came out, I want to say, in 2017. And it's an important book, in my opinion, right now, because as we approach the election, and there's a lot of people that feel that they hate both candidates and they want to fight against the duopoly, because I think a lot of people right now are kind of realizing that there is a duopoly. We were in an Obama coma from 2008 to 2016, and the election, the ascendance of Bernie Sanders and the way he got treated by the Democratic Party in 2016, I think left a lot of people disenfranchised and really hoping in 2020. And then when Bernie ran again in 2020 and the way the Democratic Party coalesced to destroy him, definitely disenfranchised a lot of people. But with so many activists that I have on my show, one thing that is certain is that activism doesn't stop because of who's in office. And especially with the clip I played early on, the Debt Collective, they have been working for years to get certain legislations passed. So we are the marginalized majority, and this is a great kind of feel-good book. It definitely gets you kind of fired up to want to do more, whatever that more is. And that's why I say join the DSA. If you want to understand, click that link, hit them up. They'll contact you. They'll talk to you. They're not weird or anything.
Or you can vote and then pretend nothing's bad for the next 4 years, then vote again, vote or die.
That's what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid that Joe Biden will win because of the dumpster fire that is the Trump presidency. And then everybody goes back to brunch. And then you get a Stephen Miller type candidate that actually has an ideology. And then we get full-blown fascism. Not whatever you think socialism is in other countries, but you get real deal fascism. Brown shirts. Fuck, you get what we do to other governments. You'll get it here. That's my fear. So, but other than that, I'm going to leave this show with a clip from Chris Smalls, who I had the benefit of talking to. Chris Smalls is the young man that took on Amazon. And if you listen to the interview, we didn't kind of dive right into politics or anything. I wanted people to kind of hear his story. Chris and I had went back and forth text messaging for a while. And he's a dude like me and Will from Jersey. Like, Will, if you met dude, we'd all be kicking it. Like, you got to make him a beat actually when he comes to Oakland, because we talked about actually doing some music. If you're still talking to Davoud, like, we got to hook him up with Davoud.
Hey, speaking of Davoud, do you remember One Little Indian Studios?
One Little Indian. Whose was that? That sounds so familiar.
Like Too Short, a bunch of people recorded there. But like Davoud literally hit me like a couple days ago. Like, hey, do you remember One Little Indian Studios? Like, where was it at and who ran it? And like me and Kev were trying to like rack our brains to figure it out.
That name sounds so familiar.
It was in El Cerrito somewhere.
El Cerrito. El Cerrito.
Davoud said it was probably somewhere like east of San Pablo by Guitar Center, in the hills a little bit.
Who the fuck ran it? I feel like we've been there.
That's what I told him. But like, it's so far removed. It took me 2 days to remember what Dre's studio was called. Poor Man.
Poor Man. Yeah. Yeah, I ran into Dre. Oh, Will froze up. Damn it, Will. Well, on that note, Davoud, who we're talking about, is a rapper named Locksmith, and he is from the same area that I am from in Richmond, California, and he is a friend of ours, and Will has been doing music with him. We've all been doing music together in some capacity, Jesus, for 20 plus years, and now he's really starting to take off, and he does great shit. I love it. So I'm going to leave you with this clip of Chris Smalls. Thank you guys for checking this out. If you can, join DSA. They're doing a big member drive. I'll try to have somebody from DSA on the show sooner than later. If you can, become a patron. The show would appreciate it if you could become a patron. Please, at the very least, follow us on YouTube so we can get a few dollars from ads. So here is a clip from Chris Smalls talking about the murderous nature of Jeff Bezos and Amazon. Oh, real quick. Do you know who Chris Smalls is, Will?
No.
So in New York, he did a walkout during the early days of COVID, I think before we even had a lockdown, because there was COVID positive people that he was working with, and he was going to management and saying like, hey, you guys need to clean this place and not let these people come back here. And they were like, well, you can quarantine at home if you want to, but we're not going to pay you for it, which a lot of companies say. So people were coming to work sick, and they weren't disinfecting the place like they were supposed to. And I think he said 8 people died in his facility. And he walked out and staged a walkout, and it became a national news story. And he's a young guy. I want to say he's like 26, 27 years old. And so he gets fired, of course, from Amazon for doing this. And they try to run a smear campaign on him. And part of the smear campaign is they say, let's let him be the face of this movement because he's unintelligent and he doesn't speak very well. So someone leaked that from the meeting. And that meeting included Jeff Bezos. Like that's how big this walkout was. That Jeff Bezos was in this meeting, and one of the higher ups like leaked it and walked out because they thought it was such a disgusting assassination of this young man's character. So since then, Chris has gone on to continue to organize workers. He was out here in Oakland. I'm so sad I missed him for the longshoremen's strike a few months ago with Angela Davis. He actually spoke with her. Again, he's a really good dude. Please listen to the interview because what I wanted to touch on was sometimes we put leaders on this pedestal like they're so divine almost, and we forget that it's everyday actions from everyday people that make these dramatic changes. And
now, you got to be perfect to lead. If not, you got to do what you got. That's kind of like the whole narrative of like a lot of the black Trumpy dudes are like, well, Biden's racist too, so we might as well just deal with Trump. Like, what? That doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, not to say that he's not, like, you're equally true. Both things are equally true, but you know,
Frisco says I lived in those hotels, aka missions, aka shelters. We're definitely cultured to produce rather than create. Yes, we are. So here is, thank you, Will, for taking the time to yell at me for literally 2 hours.
Damn.
Have a good night. I will be messaging you shortly.
Hard.
Peace. And here is, thank you guys for watching. Again, if you can, be a patron. And here's Chris Smalls.
Did so. This man don't profit $88 billion off of selling toilet tissue. It's like it's common sense. It's like common sense. It's so fucking crazy how you break it down. It's like, really, how did y'all allow this man to do this? Like, he doesn't profit off of selling essential items. He's lying straight to the public. Mm-hmm. They told the public that they changed their inventory to only sell essential items. They didn't do none of that shit. What they did was they price gouged. Mm-hmm. They price gouged by 1,000%, and then they made sales and deals on their Amazon-owned products, and then they got rid of all the other sellers. They did some really foul shit. Mm-hmm. It's criminal what they did. People have died in the very building that I worked at. And all, like you said, all they did was send them a thank you. And
wow. To hear more of This Is Revolution Podcast, find us at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and wherever else you get your podcasts. This